Shut up.
Okay guys,
Stop.
so I'm going to be presenting about some BSMD tips and tricks, things that I wish I knew when I was doing this for the first time, because there are a lot of components to this, and the information is kind of everywhere, so I really hope that this helps, and you can kind of like understand better what the actual programs look like, what kind of requirements there are, and how to go about the application process, because college apps are stressful enough. BSMDs are another beast. So first off, I wanted to ask, do you guys know what a BSMD program is? I know Dr. Ganti did like a presentation on it, but does anyone want to share any thoughts? Anything? No one? Thank you. Yes?
You get like a guaranteed seat for like a medical.
Yeah, guaranteed seat, definitely. Anyone else? Any comments? Yes?
No MCAT.
No
Maybe.
MCAT. Maybe, yes.
Asterisk.
Yes? Go.
I know it's like a less acceptance rate to get into than just applying for regular
Yes,
medical school.
Definitely.
It's more challenging.
Definitely. 'Cause
rigorous.
You're applying straight out of high school. And there's less seats available, right?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Anything? No? Okay. Who's interested by show of hands in BSMD programs? Oh, wow. Okay. Quite a lot of people. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. Here's some things on like what a BSMD is. If you haven't heard of them, hopefully you have. But it's basically you apply as a high school senior, instead of just applying to undergrad, you're applying to the program as well. And I'll go more into depth of how that can look like, because each program is different and how they want you to apply. So there's that. And I know someone mentioned guaranteed admission, so that has an asterisk next to it, just because you are given a seat and it's reserved for you, but you have to meet the requirements that they've stated in your contract that you signed, right? And they're not like crazy requirements. It's typical pre-med requirements, but it's a little bit lower levels of that. So like with like MCAT, typically either you don't have an MCAT for some of them, that's not a whole lot, or you just have a lower MCAT, so that makes that requirement a little bit easier to meet. So it's just like you have a leg up. It's not quite as demanding as a traditional pre-med, and you get a whole lot more support than if you just go to the traditional route. And in some cases, it can be also accelerated. So I will say this, people are going more and more frequently into med school with having taken a gap year, at least one. So even if you're doing an 8-year program, at least you're guaranteed to know when you're going into medical school. Like you know you are going 4 years of undergrad, and then you're gonna have 4 years of medical school. They're going to make sure that in those 4 years of undergrad, you're gonna meet every single criteria that you need to, so that you can get to medical school. They are giving you special attention, and instead of being a single pre-med and a sea of pre-meds at whatever school you're going to, now you're a part of a cohort, and you have an additional advisor, and they help you out throughout the entire process. So it's really incredible. So I will say this, and I know someone mentioned it, it's really hard to get into these. It's like Ivy League, if not even harder to get into. Like Harvard has a 3.6% acceptance rate. Some of these programs are like 1 to 5, right? And it really depends on the number of people that are in all of these cohorts. There's only so many seats, about 500 nationwide, and there's so many applicants. So like, I'm going to say this, and you're going, like, close your eyes, okay? And you're going to internalize this. You are capable, you're smart, if you work hard and you do everything that I tell you to, okay, in this presentation, and you listen, you can get there. You just have to work for it. And that can be said for any challenging program or school. Like if you want to go to Ivy, or like, you know, if you want to go to Brown, Peel, and Me, for example, you just have to work for it. And I'll show you the things that I did. I really want to be realistic about it. I think I'm a pretty realistic candidate. I'll talk about that later, actually. So I'll get to that later. But let me show you the list of programs I applied to. Like, that's a long list, okay? And I can tell you, a lot of I didn't get interviews for most of them, okay? Like, legitimately. And you know what? I still got into, well, I'll talk about that. But like, it's a long process. It's a lot of work. Like all of these had special applications, extra supplements, things like that I had to put in, and you know, it took up a lot of time. But if you have the work ethic, You can do it. Oh, shoot. But okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some programs, okay? So obviously I wouldn't put them on the slide if I didn't get an interview, right? These are the 3 programs I got an interview for, and interestingly enough, the BSMD season basically can start honestly anywhere from November all the way up to like May. So with these programs, they told me they wanted an interview from me within 3 weeks at the very end of the season. So I didn't even think I was going to get an interview. And guess what? I got 3. And obviously got into Wayne State, that's where I'm going. And if you've seen me wearing my hoodie and everything. I also got into FIU, which is a 7-year, it's accelerated, it's down in Miami. And also U Cincinnati. So I would say I am pretty qualified to talk about this. I've had some experience with interviews, and obviously I've done pretty well on them. So hopefully you can trust what I'm gonna say to you. So, like, I know that this is still like very high, like these stats, but I also wanna like be realistic about it. Like, I am not top 10, I didn't get a 1600, but like I still got into 3 programs. So it comes down to the fact of like, oh, by the way, I'll send these in Slack so you can access them. But this is my GPA when I first applied. Obviously that's, that changed every year and everything. Make sure that you keep that same rigor throughout your high school and even like increase it, that would be good. So I took 15 AP classes. I didn't have access to IB. If you do, that's great. That looks great. I got a 1530, and again, that is not, I walked in, 3 hours of sleep, didn't do any studying, and I just sat down and got a 1530. Like, that did not happen. Like, it's crazy to think that necessarily will happen. I know someone that did, okay? But that's not everyone. And there's a difference between being smart and being SAT smart. SAT is a standardized test, so don't beat yourself up if you get like a 1350 or 1230 or something on like the first thing, okay? You're not expected to get this beautiful score first time. And I took this, I don't even know how many times. The one I got after this was lower, so I didn't even put it on my application. Like, I will say the things that I used UWorld, that's UWORLD, and that was really helpful in getting started with SATs and everything. But what really pushed me up into that 1500 bracket was Prep Pros, which is PREPPROS. That's really good. Not sponsored. Really great application, I guess. But you gotta be on that. Like, if anyone knows me from last year from FPA, like I went after camp, I did 2 hours of SAT prep every single day. So that's what I'm saying, like that's the level of dedication you have to have. And honestly, the sooner you can get started with SAT prep, the better. So then here's some like activities and like honors, and I try to kind of condense it into one thing because it's a lot. But these are the things I included in my Common App. I think there's a couple other things that I included in my BSMD applications I might have not mentioned, but I think this is like kind of covering everything. So research, guess where I got that from? FPA, and I think that honestly made a huge difference. I'll talk more about FPA and why I think it really helped my application, and I think I would have had a significantly lower chance getting into BSMD if it wasn't for this program. I also volunteered at an ICU at Parish Hospital in Titusville. I did obviously some shadowing. I think I shadowed a cardiologist, a family medicine doctor, oncologist, and podiatrist, which is not technically MD, but it is good to be exposed to other medical paths that aren't necessarily MD. They have their own degree. I mean, podiatry is definitely not something for me, but you know what? I found out doing that and I got a lot of connections. The big thing about shadowing is, even if you get like there's like insane connections. My family is not from medicine, I will say that, but the podiatrist, she was like my mom's friend's daughter, boss at some point. Like that's insane, okay? But like, you have to find those connections. If your family's not from medicine, you've got to find those connections, and I don't know, exploit them, I guess. But like from there, I was able to be connected with Bree, who was one of the pre-meds working there, and she connected me with an oncologist, Dr. Grove. He's my goat. Love him. Like, I genuinely like podiatry, not for me. But I got to shadow an oncologist and a cardiologist and see that, and I've been really interested in those fields, so that was a really great opportunity. So even if it looks from the outside like, maybe I don't want to do this, they can lead you other places as well. So these are different organizations that I work with. So that's cultural behavioral health education. It's working with kids with autism. Then Ronald McDonald House, so that's helping families in need. Same goes for Florida Urban Agriculture. That's I helped SNAP recipients learn how to plant their own crops, things like that. I was also a newspaper editor-in-chief. I love writing, I love journalism, I love the arts. I will definitely say that a big part of your application also needs to be not just STEM. You also need to have some other interests, because you're also going into this and they want to make sure that like you're not going to get burned out. And every time that like maybe I need to like process something, I'll write like a poem about it or something. Like that helps me. So I think it's good to have something else that balances out all of the STEM, so it's not just that level of rigor. So then I was also president of two clubs. One is like a cultural club, the other one is more of like a social advocacy kind of club. And then I also own a sourdough micro bakery. It is not in session, obviously. I'm too busy, so do not ask me to make bread for you. But I think that also adds a little extra spice. It shows that, you know, I'm helping my community, I'm working with my community, things like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be all directly medicine related, but as long as you show like leadership and working with community and being around people and having like these social skills and things like that, I think that also just are good things to have. Also, I wanted to show you guys, I'll send it in Slack so you can see it better, but I just want to show you, like, my dad's a graphic designer, so that's why it looks so good, kudos to him, but it's structured in a way that everything is very pleasing to the eye. Like, it breaks everything apart, you can see it clearly, like saying like how many hours of different things I've done, or like different skills I've learned from these different experiences, things like that. So that's honestly my biggest recommendation. Make sure that it looks nice. Also, college app tip in general, if anything says optional, it's required. Okay, just do it, because like sometimes it'll be like you can put in a resume here, it's optional, but honestly it adds one level of humanity. If you have your face, they now associate you instead of just a name, right? And they see you when they read that application. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then here are some things to consider about BSMD programs, like pros, cons, things like that. So, talk more about that. Shoot, the transitions keep going a little too fast, too furious. Okay, so I'll start off with pros. So I know we kind of mentioned the lower MCAT as well, so that's, or having no MCAT, that's great. Some programs are almost at the same level as any other medical school, so I would say probably don't go to those unless there's some other like thing that you really like about that program, so just keep that in mind. I'm very privileged, and I will talk about my school, okay, because Wayne MedDirect gives a full ride for undergrad and full tuition for medical school. I am virtually going to be debt-free, and medicine is such an expensive career to go into that it's just it's such an incredible privilege. Not all programs have this. Sometimes they have little like scholarships here and there. Some programs are like flat out like, hey, it's a privilege for you to even get accepted to this program. You're not getting any other money from us. Like, you know, so that I've also experienced. And it's a great perk. Money is great. Then you also have typically another advisor, for me, you know, my MedDirect advisor, along with just having my pre-med advisor, so they're both they also like my pre-med advisor is very well versed in what MedDirect wants from me too, so she's always been super helpful. Love her. Yeah. And then you don't have to apply to a million med schools. You know which med school you're going to, so you're only applying to that one. I know, like, it is so stressful having to apply to 1,000,000 medical schools and then have like only like 2 come back to you. You know, like it's kind of, it's like college application season all over. Like that level of stress is just, it's great to not have that. And in my case also, my med school takes APs, and this is great. Like when I go into DegreeWorks, I'm considered a junior now. A lot of the time, like med schools don't necessarily take APs, so a lot of the time you'll have to repeat classes because you don't necessarily know if the med school that you will apply to later will take them. But in my case, I am starting as a college freshman. I'm going to have only, because of my AP Chem and AP Bio, I have Bio 2 lab, not even lecture, and Chem 2 lab. It's great. And you know what? Like the thing is also, since it's not necessarily like an Ivy, they're not as stingy about your APs. I feel like they really like haggle to make sure that somehow every single AP can like cover some sort of gen ed or something. I only have like 2 gen ed, which is, it's great. And you still have, and you honestly have more benefits than being at an Ivy. Then you also have some flexibility, so I'm taking a minor. I might actually have to double major because I have to be there for 4 years. Which is, you know, pros and cons, and I'll talk about that a little bit. And then also, you're together with a bunch of people who are going through the exact same thing as you, and that's amazing. Because, like, you know, we haven't even started yet, but I have my MedDirect group chat, and like, if there's any problems that we have, we just text each other. We've designed, like, on Etsy, we're having like a custom hoodie that we're all gonna have like cohort 11 on the sleeve and stuff like that. Like, it's just nice to have kind of already like some friends before you even go to school. Like for me, I'm here and then I'm going all the way to Michigan. Like that's kind of scary, but it's good that I have it at least with these people, and I know I can be with them. And also I have to have one of my cohort mates be one of my roommates for at least the first year. So really exciting because I really like Kaya, and it's gonna be fun. Yeah. And then obviously there's some cons. So you're kind of tied to go to that medical school specifically, just because there's lower requirements. So the likelihood that you're going to get into another medical school is just kind of low. I would say it's silly to apply to other medical schools. Why would you do that? Why would you go through that extra stress when you already know that you can get into this one that you've been in this program for? I don't really see a reason why you would do that. I mean, obviously, if you're going to go into this program, make sure that you actually like it and that you're okay with the fact that sometimes they're not like prestigious schools, okay? Like, I know a lot of people and their parents, let's be honest, are very, like, that's maybe really important to them. So that's just something that's up to you. Obviously, Brown Pleme exists, but I will say it is like the hardest one to get into, so the likelihood you're gonna get into that is also pretty low. I will say that. You first have to get into Brown, and then you have to get into PMP. So just a heads up. Be realistic about it. And also, if like for me, I can't accelerate. Like I said, I'm a junior. I need to take more classes to make sure I fill that 4-year period. And it's what I signed up for. And so make sure that you are okay with signing up for whatever you're signing yourself up for. So here are some things that, like, when you're looking for programs, you really need to like think about. For example, like the program, a lot of the time they have some sort of kind of platform. Like sometimes it's really obvious, sometimes it's literally like on the website. Like I know with Wayne State, it's like the first sentence on the Wayne MedDirect website. But for other schools, you kind of have to like probe and like figure that out. A lot of the time, it's dependent on the community that surrounds it, and so therefore, I will say this, that if they are in an area that is typically a poorer community, they're probably going to be more focused on underserved communities. Meanwhile, like, you know, if they're in a richer area, they're probably focused more on maybe like research and like technology and things like that. So it's like, it's a different perspective. So it just depends on what you want to do. And I will say this, like, the schools that wanted to interview me had the perspectives that I valued. And that's underserved communities. Not like Drexel did not want me. Like, and I'm not mad about it. At the end of the day, like and I think I also like realized that is something that I really value, and that's what I want to go into. Because even if Drexel hit me up and was like, hey, you got accepted, I'd probably say no. So, you know. Also, location and safety. This is so important. This is like college tip, okay? Do not go to a college where you can't imagine yourself living there for. Like, you're living there for at least 4 years. In this case, it's 8 years, right? Or 7 or 6 or whatever. You're living there for that period of time. You better like the area. You better feel safe in that area, right? Like, you know, I think, like, you want to be able to go out with your friends and like have dinner or like be able to do things together, because you know what, college isn't your entire life, and if that's something that you value, like definitely like think about that. And you want that when you go out with your friends, like you will live to see the next day, you know what I mean? So just important things there. Length, so I already kind of mentioned that. Accelerated, not accelerated, that's entirely up to you. I don't really think that 1 year really makes that much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. It's up to you. MCAT and GPA, again, like if these are crazy high, like it's not worth it. Why are you going to this program if it's not going to give you anything? Retention, some schools, I mean, obviously the school will not tell you what the retention is because they want you to go there. But Reddit is your friend, and people will tell you. People will tell you, like, this program, they do not keep a whole lot of people, matriculation rate is low, especially when the requirements are super high. Like, don't. Like, I know, like, USF has that problem. So, even though it's in Florida, maybe not necessarily the best option, but that's my opinion. You don't have to listen to me. I mean, you should, but it's up to you. Cohort size, I will say, like, sometimes it can range from like 5 people to like 60. Typically, I would say it's in that 5 to 20 range, and I think that's a pretty good number. I like 10. I'm biased. I like 10 to 15 just because you can find your own people in that group. You can rely on them, right? But it's not like a crazy number so that your advisor is like scrambling to make sure that like all of you have your needs met and everything. I think it's really nice than just like having just 5 people necessarily. Additional requirements, some things that, you know, are just like the fine print. Make sure that you read that contract over and over and over again, see any kind of weaknesses or things that you want to clarify, because this is going to be literally like, you know, if for whatever reason something happens, like you need to make sure that, like, you need to make sure that you know what you're signing, right? Informed consent. Example, obviously, I'll talk about Wayne State a little bit. So they're very focused on underserved communities. Like I said, that's literally like on their website first thing. And I will say, Detroit, I would say is very safe. I feel safe walking down the street, okay? Much safer than Miami, for example. I think it's definitely changed a lot in like the last 20 years. But like to me, it's very important that I wanted to go somewhere where there's things around, right? A lot of the other programs or schools that I applied to were just like kind of in the middle of nowhere, or like it was like a college town. That was something that I didn't necessarily want. I know for some people that's really important, so but like I live in a rural area, so I just wanted to go out and see things, and you know, be able to enjoy college life. And it also helps as there's 3 museums right outside my doorstep. So length, 8 years. I mean, honestly, length didn't bother me. I didn't really care. I just didn't want to do 6 year because that was, that is really rigorous, and I know in some cases you don't even get like your bachelor's degree until after you complete the program, which is a little scary, especially if you realize that this is maybe not the path for you, which is okay too, by the way. MCAT is lower. It was the lowest out of all my options, not as great. I know FIU was 5'11", I think, so, or 5'10". To put that into perspective, typically med schools will take like 5'12" is probably a good score. I know that doesn't look like a big difference, but like those points, like every point matters in that case. So just keep that in mind. GPA, I think, is reasonable. It's a little bit lower. Typically, they want a 3.6 at the very bare minimum. Retention, I mean, I didn't really see anything about that. Some people sometimes drop out because they realize that this is not for them, medicine in general. And then I have to do a couple classes over the summer, like a research class, basically. That's just me doing research and reporting it. It's not like that intense. from whatever. So, like I said, like I kind of mentioned some of these things, but I also wanted to like talk about like why did I choose this? Like I had 3 great options. Honestly, I was stuck between FIU and Wayne State. My mom really wanted me to go to FIU, low key. She wanted me to be close to home, and to me, it was like very important that I just like I also wanted to get out of state. I wanted to be in a place where there's a lot of things around. FIU is a little bit further away, and you have to have a car to get everywhere. So like these are things to consider. Like I'm just stating like my thought process to kind of give you an idea of how you want to approach this. I obviously like the fact that I don't have to pay for my school, and it's really safe, like I said. And Wayne State, or like Detroit in general, just has like a very like they're very proud of their city, and there's a big like it's like very very diverse. It's very cultural, and like I want to get out of my like little redneck community in the South. You know what I mean? Like I need to get out and see the world, and I think I feel like when I mentioned this in my interview, I think that was honestly like the biggest factor that they liked about me probably, when I talked about like how diversity is important to me, because being from like a rural area, being an immigrant and things like that, like first gen, I just like I need to go out, see the world, see other people, learn new perspectives, things like that. I feel like that's just so important to become a physician, and like Wayne State is perfect for that. It's in Detroit. So here's kind of like how I broke down kind of how the application goes. So at the top you'll see like what year it is. It's kind of, some of it's a little bit blurry. Like you can do it anywhere from like right now to like senior year. This kind of goes for gather recommendations. I would say this is best to start doing junior year, just because teachers get swamped during senior year. They have a million people asking them to write recommendations, and they're just overwhelmed. So I think it's really nice to start that process a little bit earlier, when they're not as much of like they have a larger amount of time that they can do it, basically. And so that's going to be like anywhere throughout the year, I would say. And have this saved somewhere so that when it actually comes to application season, you can be like, hey, you already wrote this for me. You just have to upload it into Common App or wherever it is. They often have an external portal as well for the BSMD programs. And then you're going to research the program, see like, you know, things that I talked about right now, things that you value and that you want to see in a program, apply to those, make yourself a spreadsheet, a list, and go down that list. Like I know that there's like a master list of all the BSMD programs. Go through all of them. Seriously, like make yourself a spreadsheet, write down everything that you want to see, and then make yourself a spreadsheet, all the information about the program, how to apply and things like that. That really helped me. There were a lot more on that list, and things changed throughout the process, and that's okay too. And then obviously going to apply, so that's going to be via Common App first, probably. Sometimes they require you to like check a box saying you're interested in their BSMD program on the Common App, and then like in their own portal, like on their undergrad website, they will have an application for their BSMD. Some BSMDs are like, you can select it, but they invite you to apply. Like FIU is like that. They only invite like 100 people. So even if you might want to get into the program, they don't even let you apply. That's the big thing. So that's going to be like, honestly, I would say start as soon as possible. This is a very long process, especially if you're applying to a lot of programs. You have a higher chance of getting into one of them. So it's going to take a longer period of time, and I would say just start as soon as possible. Get them done, even if things aren't like early action or whatever. Typically they are. Get them done before like this end of December. Like that's like, I did that, and honestly, the relief, especially when other people were still scrambling, when like the deadline was like the next week and stuff, just for like undergrad in general. It's just nice to know that everything's checked off, especially when the school year really starts to get busy and, you know, senioritis hits you. And then you're gonna have some additional essays they'll send you, like I said, like in the external portal, sometimes just along the way. These are typically asking you like, why do you want to pursue medicine, things like that. It's very specific to the schools. And another pro tip is write essays. Like there's certain like prompts that you will see over and over and over again in just essay writing in general for schools. So keep them and then reuse them. okay? So that when you then start writing another one that has a similar prompt, you can change things. Obviously, as a writer, this like broke me a little bit, but in terms of not spending too much, like you want to spend a lot of time on it, obviously, but spend your time wisely. That's what I would say. And obviously there's going to be some like prompts that are going to be different, but it's like certain prompts that are going to happen over and over again. Have good essays for it, and then either shorten it, lengthen it, however you need, and combine things like that. And then you're going to wait. You're going to do a lot of this, and it's honestly probably the most painful part. But you're going to wait until they tell you. You wait until they tell you if you're getting an interview or not, and then hopefully you do finally get that interview. So that is going to be, like I said, anywhere from November to May. That is a huge timeline, but a lot of the programs will tell you typically once they like send out the interviews. It's like, it's not like specific or anything. It's like, we'll send it out like anytime between like November and December, like, okay, or spring or something. Yeah.
Do they, like, if you don't get accepted and you don't get an, like, or if they don't want an interview with you, do they send out an email that they
Yes.
don't want to interview?
Some
Okay.
programs don't actually,
Okay.
but for the most part, they'll be like, we rejected your application, blah 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 blah, things like that. Yeah. And then you're gonna wait after your interview. It's going to, I mean, Wayne State was so good about it. Like I think I interviewed like on a Saturday, and they told me by Monday. Then meanwhile, FIU was the first one I interviewed for, and it took them like a month. So and like, you know, the overthinking train happens. But honestly, like the biggest thing is like when you do the interview, just like leave it behind you. You did everything you could. You know, how you act under stress is maybe not how you would act normally, and you just kind of have to accept that. I would say just as long as you do a lot of practice, and I'll talk more about interview prep and things like that, and some like common questions and things, like you got this. And then hopefully you get in. And this is the best part. Yeah. I think, like, I remember when I got an email for my interview from Wayne, or like any of the programs, I was smiling the whole day. Like every time I would remember in middle of class, I was like, oh my god, like I got it, I got an interview. And then when I got in, I like audibly gasped. The room was silent. It was, oh my god. It's nothing like getting accepted to like any other school. Like for undergrad, any of the schools I got into, I like didn't really like have a reaction. Like it was just so, it's like so surreal because you don't necessarily like, accept it. It's weird. Anyway, the interview. This is honestly, this is the scariest part, I know, but I would say if you get an interview, you're like practically, you just gotta like, now you're in the doorway essentially, and you just have to take the next step to get there, because they look at 1,000, a million applications and things, and if they select you for an interview, you are now part of, let's say 50 people, 30 people. That's a pretty good chance. I think for some of them it's like a 30% chance or something that I could get in, based off of the number of people or something. So it's like the likelihood that you're getting in is a little bit higher, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. Then you have two different kinds. Traditional is probably what you're going to see. MMI is more traditionally like with med school, when you're actually applying into med school and like the traditional route. But traditional is what I've experienced for the most part. I did prep for MMI because I wasn't sure if Wayne State had an MMI component, and they kind of did. It's good to prep for both, just in case. So traditional is going to be like your job interview. It's going to be, you sit down and they ask you questions about your experiences and like what you would do in certain situations and things like that. So they just want to see the kind of person you are. Like, what have you experienced? How have those helped you? But most importantly, like, they want to see that you're a real human being. Like, you want to show that you are personable, that like, you know, you're empathetic and like all these like great qualities. You want to like show these qualities about yourself when you're talking. You don't necessarily want to regurgitate your resume, because they don't want that, you know. So MMI stands for multiple mini interview, and it's exactly as it sounds. So it's going to be like several smaller interviews, and it's like it's broken down into, if it's like on a Zoom call, it's broken down into one station, one like meeting room, and they move you to the next room, that kind of thing. So that's typically like ethics-based questions, or like their questions see, can you think of other perspectives beyond your own? Like, can you see both sides of the argument? Like, can you argue for either side? And are you able to be decisive at the end of the day? And just problem solving, things like that. So here's some like traditional question tips. First thing, prepare but don't over prepare. What I mean by that is you want to do all the prep, do mock interviews. Honestly, mock interviews are your friends. Like, that's like the best thing that I can recommend for you. But you don't want to regurgitate a script, okay? Like, this is just one of those things where like they want to see who you really are. They don't want to see your memorization capabilities, okay? Like, you need to be real, to be honest, and you don't necessarily seem that way when you just regurgitate a script. And then that's especially true for like those common questions. So that's going to be like why medicine, why BSMD, things like that, and I'll talk more about how to answer those. But like those are the ones that they're most likely to ask you. So therefore, a lot of the time, like, you'll prepare for those, and so you have a really good idea of what you're going to say and how you're going to say it. But like, you don't want to go like and memorize a whole list of lines of things that you want to say. You want to have more of a bullet pointed type of thing that like you've prepared for this, but it doesn't show that you just memorized something. And then BSMD prep books, I have to say, like, this has not been super helpful for me in general. It's really hard to find one that's specifically about like interviews or has a long part on interviews. Most of the time it'll be just like the first like part of the book will be just like literally every single BSMD and the requirements. Like, if that helps you in the initial part of the process, that's great, and I would recommend it better for like the first part of it. I do think that sometimes they have good tips, but also like the internet exists. You can also just search what other people have said and like what recommendations there are and things like that. Also, mock interviews, like I mentioned, I use Med School Coach, again, not sponsored, but like this is the bread and butter. I use a different mock interview service, and not good. Not a great experience. But like this, I feel like they give you good feedback. Like, you have several different interviewers you can choose from, and it's great because you have different people who are different, right? I mean, like, and I say this, like, your interviewer is kind of going to make or break in some aspects your entire interview. Like, in the sense that you can have someone like even with your judges on SAM, right? You're going to have judges that are going to be very professional and like stoic, right? And then there are going to be ones that are like very, you know, like kind, personable, like, you know, those kinds of things. And that's just going to depend on the school, what time slot you have, things like that. Like, it's not something you can control, but what you can control is how well you prepare for all those different kinds of people, right? Because what they want can be different, and also if you have a lot of different interviewers, they can look at different aspects of your responses that they think, okay, this is, you can change this, something that someone else didn't notice, or something like that. So that's really good. Format. So how you want to answer these traditional questions. First, you want to answer the question. So that is like one sentence, like, this is my answer. You want to show a definitive answer at the very beginning, so you don't forget to do that at some point, or they're unsure of what you actually meant to say. And then you're going to elaborate. That's like 2 to 3 sentences, maybe like 1 to 2 sentences, talking more about like your answer, right? But this is what's going to make or break your answer. Anecdotes. You want to have anecdotes. And I mean this like in the sense that I can say, I'm dedicated. Okay, anyone can say that, right? But if I say, okay, in the past week, after class, every single day, I've gone straight to the library and worked until 10 p.m. That shows dedication, right? That's different, because you need to talk about your experiences and how you acted in them to provide an example to them that like you are what you are claiming to be, right? So then you're gonna like kind of just wrap it up, have one sentence at the end. This is just basic psychology, but primacy and recency effect. People only remember the first thing you say and the last thing you say. So you want to make sure that like how you end the question isn't just like trailing off or something like that. You want to end it on a good note, even if maybe you don't think you did as well in the middle. You want to end on a good note and just have something that summarizes what you just said. Okay, some do's and don'ts. Okay, like I said, practice. Practice in front of your parents, in front of your friends. Have mock interviews. Like literally, this is incredibly important because how you're going to act under stress is completely different. You think like you got this, you have this down. You get into a situation and you just can't remember your words. Like that's very real, and that might happen. Depends on the kind of person you are, right? But like keep that in mind. And then you also want to speak loudly. You want to have inflection. Like this is like, you don't want to sound like you're a middle schooler presenting a PowerPoint and just like reading off the slides. No, you want to show them that you care about this, that you like this. Like listen how I'm talking to you right now. Like I am not being like, oh, and this is what you do, and like you can't hear me. You can't hear what I'm trying to say. And you aren't feeling what I'm trying to say, right? Because it's one thing to talk about the things that you're interested in, and you can say it incredibly well. You can be so eloquent about it. But like if you don't have passion, if you don't show them that you really want this, like, okay. You know? Also, positive body language. Like I like to do hand movements. Smile, okay? But this is important. Do not fake smile. You have to learn how to do a real smile on somewhat command, okay? And so this is important. Like a fake smile, use different muscles than a real smile, and people notice that. So that's also what makes you stand out, because you seem genuine when you real smile, right? And you seem like they'll like practically not even be listening to what you're saying because, oh my god, she seems so nice and like kind of like, oh my god, I just want her in my program. Like that's like think about that, right? And then you also want to ask them questions. At the end of the interview, they're going to be like, do you have any questions for me about the program or whatever? And you're going to say yes, okay, because again, let's remember, anything that is optional is not optional. So you're going to have questions prepared, and I will say this, I think I have like a slide on this, I think so. But like the way that you are going to write the questions is you're either going to make sure that it can be applied to anyone that you talk to, or you have specific questions on the kind of person they are. So you can have anywhere from a real doctor, unlikely, like a PhD person, someone with a PhD. Typically it's like an assistant professor, like that's kind of the level of person you're talking to most times. Sometimes it's someone in like administration, someone like completely unrelated to the healthcare field. I know that that's the kind of person I had for U Cincinnati. She wasn't like, I think she was in like student affairs or something. So like, you don't know who you're going to get. I would say have some general questions that you can ask just about anyone. Some interesting questions. I know there are questions that a lot of people ask. Try to stand out again. This is where like you always have an opportunity to stand out. Don't recite a script, and I've said this, okay? But like, speak clearly, eloquently. Do not recite a script. Think of the things that you want to say. Plan it in the format, and you are golden. Like it's, like you want to just show expression. You want to show that you care about this and that you know what you're doing, and all these things. Like you want to be confident. And yeah, I feel like that's pretty obvious. Don'ts. Okay. Tell me about yourself. That's the first question. This is probably the first question they'll ask you, and I will say this. This is the most important question. Okay, like I know why medicine sounds like it is the most important question. No. This is about who you are as a person. This is where they see like you're not just someone who wants to go into their BSMD program. They see that you're actually really interested in, I don't know, basket weaving, okay? And that's interesting. Like maybe you don't know, maybe the person that you're like you have as your interviewer will start talking about like, oh my god, me too. And they'll start talking about their basket weaving projects. You know what? I had this happen to me. I talked about my chickens and at FIU, and one of the professors, she started talking about like how she had chickens and like told this whole story, okay? That's good. They remember you. Also, this is like a minute long, 30 seconds to a minute, honestly. Like, you don't want to keep this too long. But I would say this is one of those things where you kind of want to have a speech for them, or like at least, yeah, like list of things that you want to hit. I think like I have repped this question so much that I could probably still tell you what I said, and I won't because it's, yeah. But I just, things that you should talk about. Okay, so I know this question is so hard because like when I thought about this question, I was like, I don't know anything about myself. Like, what do I say? But like when you are with someone new, like someone that you just met, and you're like, what should they know about me? What are some things that I like? What are some things that are important to me, that I value? Things that are interesting about me. And so that's going to be like your family, okay? Pets, hobbies, things you like, you know, basket weaving, anything. Like I talked about like my family, like we, like there's a lot of like different nationalities in my family, and I talked about like, you know, Bear Slice, my bakery. I talked about like how I enjoy writing and things like that. Like I enjoy reading or the arts, and I love going to like art museums with my mom and like things like that. Like these are things that are important to me, that show them like I am someone beyond medicine, okay? And I think honestly the most important thing about the interview in general is that they see that you're a person, like genuinely. So like what I would say is just like tell them about your life basically. It just makes you more interesting, and it makes you go beyond what are your accomplishments. Like, okay, that's great. They have your resume on file, by the way. They're probably looking at it when they're interviewing you. Like, it's not, it's really not necessary to talk about anything that's on your resume because they already know it, they should know it, and like you are more than just your accomplishments. Inspirational, I guess, but yeah. Why medicine? So that's going to be your next and most important question. These are things like, I know for some people, not for me, they had like this eureka moment where they were like, oh my god, medicine is it for me, like this is where I need to go. They had like one special moment that they think about for the rest of their lives, or they have had a specific experience firsthand with medicine, like if they have like some sort of like chronic illness or something like that, then that's probably what they talk about. I would say like for me, this was more of like a progressive thing that I discovered for myself. I did talk about like things that continued my interest in medicine because like, you know, like at the time when I was doing my interviews, like my grandpa was in the hospital, and so I talked about that experience and how that impacted my continued interest in medicine and how I helped him during that process. So that was one part of my answer there. But you also want to talk about like maybe for this it's like specific shadowing experience. Write things down when you're shadowing, okay? Things that are interesting. Don't just talk about like not just like the information that you found interesting, but also patients that were interesting, because maybe you want to talk about that later on. And so, yeah, I think that's good. And then also, what type of physician? If they ask you this question at any point, by the way, this is not asking what specialty, this is asking the kind of physician you want to be, like the kind of person you want to be. Like, are you interested in humanistic healthcare, for example? Those kinds of things. Not like, oh, I want to be an oncologist. It just shows also some complexity and the fact that you're mature enough to answer that question like that. Yeah. Okay. Why BSMD? I hate this question. I'm gonna be honest. I absolutely hate this question because it's obvious. Like, obviously, I'm going to BSMD program because I want to have a reserved seat for me in medical school. I want to have less requirements, but they don't want to hear that. Okay. So you have to think about like, how can you say that you are ready to commit to medical school at this age? And they're probably going to ask you like, oh, you know, like you're young. You know, your frontal lobe's not fully developed, like how can you be sure that this decision is right for you? And then, yeah, that's practically the same thing, but these are some things that I talked about, the fact that I get to be in one place, I get to continue the connections that I've built, and like things like working in the same lab for 8 years and being able to have a connection with a PI, for example, that knows me and that I can maybe even get my name on research. Those kinds of things. And just having time to focus on things that are available in the community. Yeah. I will also say that you can talk about FPA here. It's nice that you can say, oh, I did a 6-week long program. I was dedicated. I was committed enough to be here for 6 weeks, be a pre-med scholar as some of you are, and you know, you can even like talk about your shadowing and things like that with FPA. So that shows that you are really interested in medicine and that you actually had real medical experience. Why our program? Okay, this is where like you just glaze the school, okay? So first you're going to research everything. And I mean like I spent like hours doing this, okay? Find things that stick out to you, that you find interesting, things that you want to pursue while you're there. Not just like the BSMD program, but to also talk about the school itself and what advantages it brings to you. And I think like also, you should also mention why you like where it is. Like for Detroit, I talked about some like opportunities that are specifically in Detroit, or that I really like the fact that it was diverse, or that it was like in an urban area, things like that. You know, like those are the types of things that you want to talk about. Even if it's just like local like traditions or things that you want to pursue later, like that shows that you're personable and that you looked at things beyond just like, I just want to go here. You want to be like really committed, and this is like your dream school. Like every school, even if it's not, okay, it is your dream school. And when you go and do that interview, you better act like it. So then I also like mentioned like any specific programs that the school has other than the BSMD program. If there was a professor that stood out to me that did like specific research or has a lab or like things like that. Research, maybe even like a specific piece of research that you found interesting. Okay, this is a tough one. What is your biggest weakness? They never ask about your strengths. Like, they do it just because like they're like, okay, we have to ask you about your weakness, but we will also ask you about your strengths. This is like really, you have to be very careful with this one. And it's because you have to state your weakness, right? Because everyone has it. Also, you are not a perfectionist, okay? Everyone's a perfectionist, okay? You do not say perfectionist at any point. And you're going to talk about how you have this weakness in a specific scenario, like the anecdote, like I've mentioned, right? Say how you have this weakness, but you're going to say, how are you fixing it? How are you improving it? Give like examples of how you're doing better at this. Because yes, you have this weakness, but you're mature and you're learning from it, and you're aware of it. Yes, I mentioned that. Okay, MMI. So I don't really have a whole lot. The thing is with MMI questions is that every question you're going to get is going to be completely different, but it has the same typical formats, right? So you're going to have like 1 to 2 minutes response per question, and sometimes they let you write stuff down as you think about the question, sometimes not, but this is critical. Consider all sides of the situation, always. Think about, even if that's not your personal opinion, like if you don't necessarily approve of that or whatever, like what your opinion is, you have to make sure that you think of, okay, this is this stance, this person's stance could be like this, and this could be the reasons why they might do this. But on the other side, this is like the other issues, because it's an ethics-based problem. Like you're supposed to look at it from all kinds of perspectives to make sure that you answer it properly. Because the only way that you can answer, like you can't think of only one side, because that doesn't show that like you're capable of, you're mature enough. Like I speak of maturity because I think that's so important. Like you need to be like mature enough in their eyes to be able to handle this, to be able to see other people's perspectives, because they want only the best of the best in their programs, and they want to make sure that you're going to even like see this through, right? And then these are the 4 pillars, okay? Autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. You want to put these, at least like 2 of these, in every single response you have with an MMI question, because like it's just so critical in just like any ethics-based situation. And Dr. Conti just mentioned these, so I won't go over them. But formats. This is how you, and this is somewhat similar. You answer the question, you have a sentence. What is your side? what do you think is the best way to go about this? Then say, okay, here are the pros and cons. This is this perspective, this is that perspective, like I said. And then you're just going to give like a nice little conclusion to that answer and call it a day. So, other MMI tips, things that I kind of learned as I went along. So, the thing is like, this doesn't necessarily make sense, but like, let me explain it. So, when you're like talking to like a patient or like maybe like a nurse, like for example in an MMI you might be like given the situation where like you see a nurse like maybe like steal some kind of drug and you see like her like that in itself is probably an ethical dilemma, right? So what do you do about it? You're a just a medical student, you don't really have that much authority. How do you handle that situation, right? So if you do talk to her, which you should, you want to also say like, think about how you would actually act in that situation. And these are things that you don't necessarily think about because you're just talking. But if you're talking to her, you want to be compassionate, okay? So you're going to say, I would compassionately speak to her and say like this, this, and this. Because you want to show how you would act in that situation. And I think that sometimes you forget that component specifically. And then also, you're only in high school, so how are you supposed to know how to interact, how to act in every single situation? You don't, right? So if you don't know something, be like, I'm not sure if this is specifically the protocol, but I would do this, or like something along those lines. And you can also sometimes ask questions, and they can also like give you an answer on that. And also just know a little bit about ethics. I know you don't necessarily have to know everything, but it's good to have a good background that can help you a lot with these questions. And ask for the questions, like I said. So asking questions, this is at the end of the interview. I would say, be unique, and ask them also about who they are as a person. Again, people love talking about themselves. People love talking about themselves, especially like, like people who are like very accomplished and things like that. They want to talk about themselves and what they've done and why they're here and things like that. So you can ask them more about what role they have. Sometimes they'll say it like when they introduce themselves, but if they're like, if they have like a PhD or something, you can ask them about their research and what they've done and like why are they here at this school and like, be interested. Be interested in what they have to offer as well. Yeah. This is kind of what I mentioned. So you want to make sure that the questions can be either given to a wide variety of people, or you have some questions if it's a student, if it's someone with a PhD, a doctor, just someone from like some other kind of field, something more general. That's what you want to include. And also be memorable, have questions that are maybe different from what you just see on like Reddit or something. And then here's some final tips. So, when you do something that could further you in like your medical accomplishments, right? You want to write that down. You want to write down when you did it, how long you did it for. You want to talk about like what exactly you did, like action verbs. That's important. And anything that was like really important that stood out to you that you really like learn from that experience. Because these things you're going to have to put in Common App or in the BSMD portal, so just be aware of that. Okay, here I'm going to talk about FPA, okay? Because, like I said, most of you have committed 6 weeks to being here, okay? And that's a lot of time, and it's very rigorous. Something you can definitely talk about in your application, in your interview, things like that. But you can also talk about the fact that you're published. If you're here, you're published. You know what I mean? I mean, finish your paper, or else you're not going to get published. But you will get published. And these are real medical journals. This is not your AP research project. This is not a high school journal. This is something. This is real. Like I don't know. Like I feel like some of you guys don't realize like how big of a deal this is. You are going to a conference. Like when I was talking with Veda, she was talking about how she went to a conference. What was that, like last year or something? Yeah, and like all her friends were like, "Oh my God, you're going to a conference? Like this is a big deal, guys. Seriously." And you're going to walk out with an outstanding researcher award just for the fact that you did this. that you committed your time to this specifically this week, an incredibly rigorous past couple days. So it's seriously like, you know, your parents paid a lot of money for you to be here. Get the most out of it. That's what I'm saying. Like, honestly, I don't think I would have had as good of a chance getting into a BSMD program if it wasn't for FPA, because finding medicine was something that was a little bit more recent for myself. And I had a very strong humanities aspect. Like I said, like I really loved journalism, and I was involved in the newspaper, and I had like poetry awards and things like that. But like, how do I show that I actually am really interested in medicine? And honestly, this experience, being actually able to have like real hands-on experiences, like with like even like the different people who would come in, like professionals that are in their field and talk about their field, or having like the models and things like that, having stations, like it is insane the kinds of things that you get to do. And like I really hope that you guys appreciate it. I know a lot of people who would probably die to even be here, so I would definitely say that you need to talk about FPA in some form. I mean, you will, because there's so many things that it gives you. And like I put all of my certifications on my resume, for example, because I didn't have a spot to put it in my Common App. But like there's a lot. There's just so much that you can get from this program if you put in the work, and if you advocate for yourself and showcase that. So I will also talk a little bit about supplements. This is like, I feel like this is just like a basic writing tip. This is kind of what I would tell like my like newspaper kids basically, but like show don't tell. And this is like when I like edit like my friends, like if they have like, you know, like their comment at PSA or whatever, and they're like, can you just like look at it? This is my biggest comment always, okay? It's not the grammar, it's not the sentence structure, it's not the like the way you say it. You need to show me how you did this. Like what did you feel in the moment? Like make me be there. Like that's like the biggest components of writing anything. Show me. Give me like imagery. And explain further than just give me a sentence, I did this. What did you do? How did you get here? Like that's critical. And also be specific. Talk about yourself. Like this is like, it's weird at first, but you really just gotta like start like putting different aspects of different accomplishments that you've had into your writing in different ways, without sounding obviously like oh my god, look at all the things I did, but like showcase yourself and your accomplishments because they want to see them. Yeah, and always explain why it's important. Why are you telling me this? Why is this critical for like this response specifically? Like those kinds of things. And end with a bang. Like that last sentence, again, you want to make sure that they remember you. They remember that application. Don't end on a weak sentence because that makes your entire paper now look weak. So keep it with something simple, like a good one-liner that just ends it. And then final note, a couple things. Shadow and research as soon as possible. Obviously, you guys are here, and I know we've had some shadowing opportunities for our pre-med scholars, but definitely seek out some other shadowing opportunities. You know, friends of friends of friends. You know, if your family's involved in medicine, that's great. I'm sure they have friends that can hook you up with some shadowing. Just honestly, you can even just cold call. People are so people are so happy to teach people things. Like they love when people are interested. Just be interested. When you're there, make sure that you're engaged and ask questions and things like that. And obviously write everything down. And then research programs as soon as possible to make sure that, you know, you're not rushing on that, because that's really important. Yeah, stay consistent. So with shadowing, make sure that you are committing yourself to more than just like maybe a day here, like one time. Like try to have a lot more hours over a longer span of time. Do it for like a couple weeks here and there. It doesn't have to be like straight like week, right? But try to have it like in between school, or like even better in the summer. You still have some time. and then start studying as soon as possible for the SAT. I cannot stress this enough. This is so much stress. Like, you need to get this out of the way as soon as possible. It just, and then also, you know, collect recommendations, like I've said, and diversify yourself. So be something beyond medicine. Show them that, like, yeah, okay, you could be great at STEM, but like, what do you do outside of it? Like, what hobbies do you have? Or like other kinds of commitments that aren't just medicine related, that show that you're a balanced human being. That's it.